Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle a piece of tech that, let's be honest, you've heard the name a million times, but what it really is, well, that's a whole other story. We're talking about blockchain.
So let me ask you, when I say the word blockchain, what's the very first thing that jumps into your mind? For most of us, it's going to be one thing in particular.
Yup, you're probably thinking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, the whole world of crypto. And look, that totally makes sense. Crypto is what put blockchain on the map. But, and this is a big but, focusing just on that? It's kind of like looking at the entire internet and only seeing cat videos. It's a fun part of it, for sure, but it's just one tiny piece of a much, much bigger picture.
Because what if the real game changer here isn't about inventing new forms of money? What if it's about building a whole new foundation for something way more fundamental to how we all interact? I'm talking about trust itself. And that's the big idea we're going to unpack right now.
So, let's do this. If we're going to call blockchain a new foundation for trust, we've got to understand how it's built, right? What is this thing really at its core? Okay, strip away all the hype, and at its heart, a blockchain is just a special kind of database. The easiest way to think about it is like a shared digital notebook. But this notebook isn't locked away in one company's server. Nope. A copy is given to everyone in the network. And here's the magic trick. Once a page is written, it can't be changed. It can't be erased. Not by anyone.
And that magic trick rests on these three pillars. You've got decentralization, which just means nobody's in charge. No single company, no single government. Then you have immutability, which means the record is permanent. It's set in digital stone. And finally, transparency, meaning everyone can see the exact same version of the truth. You see how those work together? You don't have to trust a bank or a CEO anymore. You just have to trust the math. So how does it keep that record so perfectly permanent? Well, it's actually brilliantly simple. Every new piece of information gets bundled into a block. That block gets its own unique, super secure digital fingerprint called a hash. Then that block is chained to the one before it. So if anyone at all tried to go back and secretly change something in an old block, its fingerprint would change, and that would instantly break the chain for everyone to see. It's basically a self-policing system. And this table really hits the nail on the head. Blockchain is not here to replace every database out there. A regular old-school database, it's way faster, it's more flexible. But if your main goal is to create a bulletproof, unchangeable record between a bunch of people who don't necessarily trust each other, well, that's where blockchain just completely shines. It's a very specific tool for a very important job.
All right, enough with the theory. Let's get to the good stuff. How this new trust machine is already creating some pretty incredible transformations out in the real world. Let's start with a massive problem for a company you've definitely heard of, Walmart. So imagine there's a food safety scare, like a batch of contaminated lettuce hits the shelves. They have to figure out exactly which farm it came from, and they have to do it, like, yesterday. But with thousands of suppliers and trucks and warehouses, that's a nightmare. So, before blockchain, tracking down a single head of lettuce involved this crazy web of phone calls, paper invoices, and digging through spreadsheets. The whole thing took, wait for it, almost 7 days. When people are getting sick, a week is an eternity. Then they brought in the IBM Food Trust blockchain. Now, everyone, from the farmer to the delivery driver, is on the same shared, unchangeable notebook. So how long does that same trace take now? 2.2 seconds. Think about that. From a week of chaos to an instant verifiable answer. That is what we're talking about. And it is so not just about food. In healthcare, it's being used to fight the $200 billion counterfeit drug market. For your personal identity, it's about giving you control of your data instead of just handing it over to tech giants. NFTs are letting artists prove they made something and get paid every time it's resold automatically. And get this, Renault used it to cut their compliance costs in half. This isn't science fiction. This stuff is happening right now. But okay, let's pump the brakes a little. As with any world-changing technology, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We need to have a serious reality check about the hurdles that are still standing in the way. And maybe the biggest hurdle of all is speed, or lack thereof. Because every transaction has to be checked by the whole network, it can be slow. I mean, look at this. The Bitcoin network can handle maybe 7 transactions per second. The Visa network, it handles over 24,000. That is a massive, massive difference. And it's a huge bottleneck for this tech to go mainstream.
And it's not just speed. You've got different blockchains that can't talk to each other, creating these little digital islands. It's still pretty complex and expensive to build this stuff. And honestly, the regulators are still scratching their heads trying to figure it all out. The whole industry is kind of working through what they call the trough of disappointment. You know, that phase after the initial crazy hype, where the hard, unglamorous work of actually building things begins.
So even with all those challenges, the smart people are still hard at work. So where is this all headed? What's the next chapter look like? Well, despite the hurdles, the long-term bet is staggering. The global market for blockchain is projected to be worth over $825 times billion by 2032. That's not pocket change. That tells you that some of the biggest players in the world are betting big on this technology's future. And the innovation is getting really cool. You've got things like real-world asset tokenization. I mean, imagine being able to buy and sell a tiny piece of an office building just as easily as you buy a stock. Then there's something called zero-knowledge proofs, which is a total game-changer for privacy. It's like being able to prove you're over 21 to get into a bar without ever actually showing the bouncer your driver's license. Seriously. And finally, you have modular designs, which are kind of like tech Legos, letting developers build specialized blockchains that are super fast and efficient. So I think the question to leave you with isn't, will blockchain take over the world? It's something more subtle. Will it become the invisible, essential plumbing of our digital lives? You know, like the protocols that run the internet. You don't see them, you don't think about them, but they make everything work. It might just become this quiet utility that runs in the background, making sure all our digital interactions are safe, honest, and verifiable. And you know what? That might just be the most revolutionary idea of all.